guys.
Okay.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ron, would you?
Sure. Heavenly Father, we come to you and just give you thanks again for watching over and protecting us, and ask for your continued guidance and your hand over us. Keep us safe forward as we fight these missions and help our country move forward with our service people and their families.
Thank you, Lon. Well, we're going to have a really short meeting tonight. There's only 4 of us here, so David has a video on helicopter, something or other, for safety. So we're going to watch that, and if nobody else shows up, then we're going to end the meeting a little early. And then Lon can give an update on the plane situation. So take it, David. You need this mic back?
Market Smith by Investors Business Daily is a powerful stock
You want this over there?
designed to find winning stocks.
This is Juan Brown from the Blanco Lirio channel, and a recent video from Cable Airport, Uplands, California, has highlighted the hazards of wake turbulence behind helicopter operations, something that a lot of us fixed-wing pilots are not very familiar with. Check it out. This accident occurred back on the 3rd of January 2022, and amazingly, only 1 minor injury out of this wreck. Very, very lucky. The Cessna 140 has a maximum gross weight of only about 1,400 pounds. The aircraft itself is about 800 pounds empty. The Cal Fire Huey helicopter has a maximum gross weight of 10,500 pounds. Remember, the greater the weight, the greater the wingtip vortices, or wake turbulence. Cable Upland Airport is located here in the very congested Los Angeles airspace, but is a small, uncontrolled airport located right here just north of Ontario. So as we watch this video again from the Aviation Safety Network, note the timestamp up here in the upper left-hand corner. You'll see a full 20 seconds of time elapse from the time the helicopter passes to the time the Cessna 120 gets tangled up in its wake turbulence. Just extremely lucky. If he'd slid into those hangars or those buildings over there, it would have been a disaster. And note also, you can see where he begins to hit the wake turbulence, and then it appears that he hits the core of the wake turbulence, and it really rolls him up on his side there. Right there. Just either the aircraft has just basically doing a snap roll, entering a spin, or he's exacerbating by hitting the core of that
Right there.
wake turbulence of that
That
helicopter.
spot right there
Just
where we
rolls
are
it right
seeing
up.
the aircraft.
Again, what's the natural human reaction? Whack that aileron into there. That's not helping in this situation, but what are you going to do? I mean, That's just going to be your natural reaction. There's no getting around it. The rudder's what you need, but at this point, this wake turbulence has overpowered this 120, and it's just batting them out of the sky.
That's just insane.
Just so lucky.
He survived it. Minimal injuries.
Remember, like fixed wing aircraft, the wingtip vortices from a helicopter are worse when the helicopter is heavy and flying slowly. And remember, at an uncontrolled airport like this, you, the pilot in command, are the one who's responsible for maintaining proper separation, helicopter wing vortice separation. And as the helicopter lifts out of ground effect, which is approximately the one rotor diameter above the ground, the wake turbulence from the helicopter can spread out to as wide as 3 times the rotor diameter. It's a little bit less when the helicopter's in ground effect.
I don't know if that's up north somewhere. Must be.
For some more good videos on this subject and some of the sources I used in making this video is the BEA, the Bureau of Inquiries and Analysis in France. They discuss a helicopter accident where the wake turbulence knocked down a paraglider. The Bouchard recovery technique has the excellent visual graphics of what the wake turbulence looks like behind a helicopter. Of course, they're talking about vortex ring state escape maneuvers. Pilot Yellow always has great helicopter content on his channel, and Helicopter Lessons in 10 minutes or less he does great graphics as a flight instructor, helicopter flight instructor, explaining how all this works. Thanks so much for your support of this channel. See you here. Especially the folks over on Patreon that make this content possible.
See how that just that stop.
Impact, yeah.
That's the only thing that kept that guy alive. He rolled over the carpet. That's something to think about.
That was a great video, David. Thanks for bringing that.
It's something to think about at Redlands because we have so much helicopter traffic. And since Red Bowder has all those helicopters along with Gary Fraser, they're water planes and they're heavy. And one's, in fact, Bowder's got a couple Black Hawks. So they're heavy lift. And then we've had a twin in there that periodically a twin comes in on the north side and flies a pattern altitude. So it's something to bring up, and we have a Redlands Airport Association meeting tomorrow night. I'm going to bring this up as a safety because we really don't talk a lot about this, and I've never given it much thought. I always
The helicopters are just a
helicopters
nuisance,
always off
right?
On the right-hand side anyway by the gas pump.
Right.
Over here. So you're really kind of out of it. But if it's transitioning across that runway, it becomes a real special consideration.
I was going to ask the question, is that don't they helicopters fly on one side or the other?
On the south side, basically. The pattern altitude on the south side of the runway.
The rule for helicopters are supposed to avoid standard traffic. So in other words, if we're doing, left-hand traffic for a regular airplane, helicopters do right-hand traffic to avoid you to the same runway. So if you notice that helicopter is actually the pilot in command sits on the right side, it's because he does right-hand traffic most of the time to land, so he wants to be able to look out and see that. So Anyway, hey, do we have anybody? Go ahead.
We got 4 people online.
We have 4 people online. Hello, everybody. We're actually going to have a short meeting tonight because we only have 4 people here, and I just stepped in because there was nobody here to MC the tonight's meeting. So the next up is Lon. He's going to give us an update on 437 and 887 and 743 Charlie Papa. So.
The 9700 Zulu, that plane has been moved to Fullerton, and we don't expect it back. It's going to go back up to Washington, probably the 8th of August or thereabouts. The other aircraft that we currently have is 743 Charlie Papa. That one currently right now is up there in the top parking, which probably can be put into our hangar because, as I understand it, we're going to be able to keep that plane at Squadron 5 for some period of time, helping us to get Form 5s and other flying that needs to be done, because our other plane that we have, 437 Charlie Papa, that one just had an engine change. So 6 months later, here we are. The engine finally got changed. And 7, how many months? 9.
Terry said 9.
Well, it went down in January, and it's July. So that plane now, tomorrow we're going to be doing an engine break-in flight. There was touch and go the last day here because there was a part that the engine manufacturer didn't send, and they couldn't find it anywhere. It's a coupling that drives the tachometer sensor, and so that was missing. So they ran it up the first time. They didn't have any tach, so they had to shut it down. They were able to manufacture a part that fit and worked. It ran it up, and they had a couple an oil leak that they were able to tighten up a hose and fix that. And so our flight for tomorrow, the break-in flight, is on. Trent Ferris and myself are going to make that flight tomorrow morning. So tomorrow morning early, we're going to make that flight. I've inspected the engine already and didn't find anything that stuck out that was wrong on the installation. The mechanics said that it ran up good and there were no leaks. So we'll take it up for a flight tomorrow early morning, and for its break-in and following the procedures that were given to us. And then the San Diego Squadron is going to pick it up Thursday and fly it down to IPL, follow the break-in procedures, and bring it back here at about the 10-hour mark so that they can change the oil. Maintenance one's been notified changing the oil on Monday. Then they're going to take it back to IPL again the following weekend and try to put some more hours on it following the break-in procedures. And that'll be bringing it back. They'll have the 25-hour oil change. And then there'll be a 50-hour oil change. But so there's a 30-hour break-in time period that the procedures want us to follow. And basically, it's 75%, 65% power, no touch and goes. There's a list of things that I could read off, but I made an insert for the AIF, so those that fly the plane can follow that But so for the next 30 hours, we're going to be really watching the break-in of this engine, because it's critical that it gets broke in properly so it doesn't be burning oil like it started off. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
How are we supposed to monitor what San Diego does?
We
know
don't
what
because
we're supposed to do, and we have good pilots here, but I don't trust those pilots down there.
as I understand it, the aircraft is going to be transferred down to San Diego. So after the 25-hour oil change, then it probably won't be staying here anymore. It'll be transferred and then spend time down there. There was some talk about them trying to share the plane, so that we could both fly it. But as long as we have 743, a nice 182, then we should be good to go. I'm trying to get my Form 5, and it takes a plane. We have had 3 different configurations of aircraft, round dial with a mix of avionics in there that are all different. And they really need to have a flight with somebody that basically checks you out on these new aircraft, 206s. So hopefully we won't have to go through that anymore, and we'll just be with the 182. It's a G1000. It's a good airplane, and we'll be able to do our Form 5s and other proficiency flights. The National Commander came out and sent it down to all of the state squadrons, all the state wings, so that we do some type of proficiency flying. There's a whole list of those things like stalls and steep turns and slow flight, and various types of other landings. So I expect for a mission number to be coming out of the state here shortly, so that pilots can take advantage of that training opportunity with the CFI. So that's coming up. And then we have this onboarding thing that people can get into also. So there you go. There's the status of the planes.
Thank you. Thanks, Lon. Appreciate that. Thanks for all your hard work and keeping care of the aircraft as much as you can. I know Andre is having fun at the Oshkosh, and he'll be back for next week's meeting, I think. So I just happened to be here tonight. That's why I took over. But Mr. Younger, did you have anything to go over? We were thinking about having a short meeting tonight because not too much participation, but we have 4 people online. Yeah, and if you would email me your just email me this and tell me that you're online, I can put you on the sign-in list. So, all right.
We got commander's call Saturday morning at 9 o'clock at March.
Yeah, but I don't go to that now.
Well, I'll be there, so I guess I'll be representing my pilots.
Well,
Unless
Andre might be
unless
here, and Chris might be able to go.
I
So.
probably won't, because the Squadron Leadership School is also
The Squadron what?
Squadron Leadership School.
Oh, leadership school. Okay.
So that's all day, Saturday and Sunday.
Uh-oh. Okay.
And I know Andre, I don't think he'll be there.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still at the
So does if you could email me in or respond to the YouTube there, tell me is there any subject you guys need to for us to go over or talk about right now? I was not prepared to have an hour-long meeting tonight, so I'm not prepared. And Ixpian, he's our aerospace engineer, aerospace education officer. He actually is not here tonight as well. And we probably should check in with him, see how he's doing. I haven't heard back from him for a while. So, anybody have any information? Anybody want any information? Let me know. We had a SARX, I think, last weekend or the weekend before last. And how did that go, Mr. Younger?
Pretty good. I don't know. I mean, I think most of you were here when I talked about it last time.
Just trying to fill time.
Yeah, I got you. So, yeah, I mean, Sarx was good, except, but I have some takeaways. One of the takeaways that I really have is, the way that they prep for the SARXs and the way that they're executed. Um, there's a focus on people getting their participation done, but it's a mixed bag of, are they getting the correct training when people sign those tasks off? I think people are checking, but the problem is that second exercise we talk about where you should be completely hands off, and I think it's a mixed bag on that. Plus, I had a long conversation, a little bit with the ground team leader, and I'm definitely not at the point where I want to, put together a SARX, but I've got some ideas, and it's one of the things that I was very curious about because I asked him. I said, "Hey, you were out there, planning targets, helping the cadets and whatnot. Um, should you or should we incorporate the SUAS program into a ground team?" And that sparked off a long conversation because my thoughts were, well, you can't fly the drones at an airport. So if we're doing a SARX out of Cable or out of Riverside, you can't launch a drone anyway, unless it's a Class 4 military drone, which are full-sized aircraft. But I was like, well, the most common place that we'd use a drone, obviously, is closer to a search area and in conjunction with a ground team. Like that's my thought. And he's like, yeah, it totally makes sense. And he's like, but the problem is most SUAS, technicians and pilots, aren't ground team capable, I guess is one way to say it. So we started kind of like riffing back and forth, and I was like, well, I recently got my remote pilot license, and I was like, what am I going to do with this thing? And then I was like, and then we started talking. I'm like, well, he's like, the way he sees it is SUAS should incorporate either GT3 or maybe require GT3, or there should be some sort of relationship between Ground Team 3, which is the first level of ground team, and being a drone technician or a drone pilot. Because you're going to have to hike out with your drone, its supporting equipment, batteries, and all that kind of stuff into an area where you can stage closer to the ground team and assist the ground team search with basically what would be a tight search pattern, compared to what our planes fly. And we started just kind of riffing about it, and I was like, yeah, it probably needs to be thought of, like the way we do our drone programs. Because today it's kind of like, yeah, it's fun for the cadets, and there you go. But when I lived in Mission Viejo, there was a real missing child issue, very sad case. Um, was a kid, I think he was home from college, visiting, and went missing, and it was pretty sad. Everybody got really concerned, and it was right in the neighborhood that I lived in, and they said anybody who's got a drone, please help, search this area. This is way before I joined CAP, and sure enough, there was a bunch of us with drones flying over the forest, like because it was like there was a park and then a trail and the little hills out there in Mission Viejo, and we searched and we didn't find it. But then very shortly, what happened is there was a very heavy rainfall and uncovered his body in the park, which was like I said, very sad case. But yeah, was buried in a shallow grave. It was really really sad story, but it kind of got me thinking that unless you're dealing with a specific spot mission like that, most drone operations really should be to support ground team operations. And they're going to search here, but you can cover more ground with a good drone search. And we should somehow incorporate that into either the drone program or the ground team program, or maybe they should, I don't know if merging is the right word, but they should have some sort of relationship, because drones are not going to fly out of the airports, and that's that's the part where I kept scratching my head, like, so what is CAP doing with drones? Now it could be I just don't know what's going on with drones and CAP.
Technically, when we get out into the rough, in the middle of the mountains or the middle of the desert or wherever, the drone team is supposed to, drive up with their drones, assemble them, and then do multi-acre searches with the drones
Mm-hmm.
that the ground team can't do.
And are they?
Some of the rough terrain and things like that, we can do a faster search with a drone than we can by foot.
Has it? It'd be interesting to.
So anyway, they're training for that.
Do they work? And have they worked with ground teams when they do that?
I don't know. Travis Carney is one of the guys that do the drones, and those guys at Cable Squadron are a little bit more involved in it than we are,
Right.
obviously.
Right.
So,
Right. Because I started,
curiosity, you should call those guys and see what they've got going, and maybe we can do a joint effort somehow. And
Well, I think so because the other thing is, so then we were talking back and forth and we're like, that's all cool. And then I was like, I'm aircrew, and I noticed when I was doing my aerial, so in this arc I did an aerial photography mission, and we're doing all these passes over it was the 605 and the 210 interchange, and the photographer needed to get specific shots, and we're doing all kinds of crazy maneuvering, swirling around there. And about 30 minutes into that, I noticed on one of our passes, there was a RC airfield, so radio controlled aircraft airfield that we were flying like right over. And I was like, suddenly I got super concerned about, are there RC aircraft up and about, and are we going to hit one because we're low and flying over this interchange? And then so I'm like, okay, I think if we haven't covered this in drone operations around ground team, we should definitely cover drone operations around when there's also a SAR, airborne search going, because obviously if we're low and slow and there's drones up high shooting downward, they shouldn't be conflicting, but we all know that, things happen. So
Drones by FAA rules are limited to 400 feet altitude.
Right.
So even at March, people would call operations since I'm working 2 miles to the east in a vacant field, and my altitude max would be 400 feet. So at the tower, we understand what's going on.
Okay.
But there are limitations of what to do now. Does everybody hold true to that? Probably not.
Right, and in the vein of safety, it should at least be addressed that, well, if there's a drone team operating in an area and there's also an aerial search, the drone team needs to be on whichever the air-to-air frequencies are, so they can communicate directly with the planes, and we're covering this area, and the planes stay there.
You see, all of that should be in the briefing for the search. It's not that they need to communicate with you. There should be limitations set down, so when the briefing goes out, we're going to search this area, and we're going to have these different grids, and we'll have a drone within this grid. You're going to be at a certain altitude, and the drone's going to be at a certain altitude. That should all be in the briefing. So you really don't need to communicate between the two of you if it's in the briefing, and every crew knows where the limitations are. That's my own personal opinion.
That's fair.
Another grid.
That's fair.
Here's the drones. They go in this grid, and aircraft go in this grid. Stay away from each other.
That's fair. Okay. Well, I mean, and like I said, it just, we started brainstorming. I don't know anything about it because I'm new. But it was an interesting thought of, I've been to 2 SARXs, and they're really, I think the one here, they had a drone class, but I didn't get to see what they did. So, be interesting to kind of.
Drones are relatively pretty new, and I don't know how the interaction between the drones and the regular SARXs are going right now. I haven't been involved in that, so I can't really tell you. But I do know that it's everybody's training, and they're trying to make a lot of mission observers and mission what do they call them, technicians and pilots for drones. And it's just an up and coming thing right now still, I think. But I would like to see you put together a Form 21 SARX with that interaction. That would be great. Around the neighborhood here, I can help you do that. So that's Form 21 is a request for SARX funds.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be interesting. It'd be a good learning opportunity because, Like I said, I haven't seen it, and then like I said, flying over a bunch of radio controlled aircraft kind of sparked it in my mind.
Yeah.
Like, maybe we should think about this, but.
Well, the other thing that I noticed too, when they have the air shows, every once in a while they'll have RC aircraft flying over the runway or taking off on the actual runway. Mini jets or whatever they are.
Yeah, it's possible to have them on an airport, but
There's just special permission.
there's special permission. There's you got to get waivers and you got to get permission from the tower. It's just like a regular aircraft. So,
Yep.
And once you get a waiver and you're going to fly that drone here, you have to call the tower, get permission to take off, and permission to do whatever you're going to do, and permission just like everything else. So he knows where you are, and he can direct other aircraft around you. So.
Yep.
Now there is, I think, a requirement coming up, and I don't know if they've instigated it yet, but they're trying to get sorry, I forgot the acronym, but they're trying to get the tracking.
Oh, ADSB.
ADSB?
ADSB.
The ADSB in all the drones.
Yeah.
So
I saw it as I was kind of taking the certificate upgrade course. Like, yeah, there's discussions about ADSB, and I think after a certain size, they definitely need to have ADSB on board. But
I think that was going to be receive only, because if they're transmitting, they were going to flood the frequencies with all these extra drones.
So it would be on a special frequency for small aircraft only, and it's regional. It's only going to be able to broadcast so far within.
well, it's going to be just like an aircraft. If you're in the aircraft, if you're in the aircraft area, the airport area, which is a 5-mile radius around an airport. If you're there, you have to start transmitting, just like an airplane will. So,
I mean,
if you're out in the boondocks and you're just playing around, you probably don't have to transmit. But
did they say they were going to do a different frequency or something?
I remember talks
It's
about
ADSB.
it.
It's just going to be an ADSB.
Well,
It's going to be a transmitter, I would imagine, so they can transmit their position so other aircraft can see it.
right. I mean, the requirement for current planes is ADSB out, right?
Right.
And
It's the same thing.
and ADSB out is peer to peer. So if a drone has it and a plane has it, the plane will get a notification of there's another aircraft in the area and get some sort of traffic data. That's why I said, have you heard them say that? Because that would be, how would it be compatible? Because the only way I could think about it is they would have to upgrade the ground towers, and drones communicate with the ground towers, and the ground towers would then repeat that information back out if they're going to use a different frequency.
That way you don't flood.
They're going to be on the ADSB just like an aircraft.
So
the whole idea is so we can
10
see where the drones are, right?
The transponder's talking 1200, and it picks up the 1200. So there's a 1047 megahertz, and there's a
978, I think, or
9. I was going to say 960, 980
you talking about for ADSB or for?
ADSB.
I think it's 978 and
The
1090.
receiver is 10. Is in the
It's 1090,
10
I
something,
think.
and
Yeah.
then the transmitter out is in the 9s. That's common, and it's a standard for every airplane.
Yeah.
So that's why when you have tracking here, I've got 60 airplanes in the Los Angeles basin that's tracking, and they're all in different codes,
Mm-hmm.
but it's all being transmitted out in one frequency. It picks up all the
Yeah.
one frequency.
The two frequencies are 978 and 1090.
Yeah, the 978 is kind of like the old, and I think generally they refer to that as under flight level 18, and then I think 1090 is definitely for Class A airspace. I think you have to have it.
Is that the same with the personal locators? Is that the same frequency that they use?
You're thinking of 406, the ELT
Yeah.
frequency?
Yeah, the personal locators are the 406
Ooh.
frequency.
I don't know if it fits under aerospace education, but I was, getting bored, and I was reading the Becker manual, because every time I've been in an airplane and every time we've heard an ELT and I turn on the Becker, it's just, crazy time. So I bothered to actually read the Becker's capabilities, and very interesting how the interaction between 121.5 and 406 works. As we know, the 121.5 will just sit there and, give off its signal continuously.
Because that was a sweet tone.
then the 406 is every 50 seconds it sends a burst, over 406 that's picked up by SARSAT, but also is picked up by things like our Becker units. And the Becker unit has a capability to monitor both. And when it gets the 406 burst, it'll store that, and you can actually just recall it, and it gives you the lat long coordinates of the last burst it received.
Good read.
Yeah, again, it just shows I was bored and drinking wine in the middle of the night. But the cool thing is like I have a much greater understanding of the Becker unit, what it's capable of doing, and now I'm starting to realize that, you know, um, we definitely need some training on it. I was gonna next time I'm up with Terry, it's like, nah, we need to really work on getting a target planted on the ground and practicing searching for it, because in the SAR-X's we just don't get enough time to do it.
We call that UDF training.
Mm-hmm.
The UDF training is basically the 121.775 training frequency,
Right.
which is
Mm-hmm.
what we use to train with. But we don't do much of the 406.
Oh, and I'm not even
Because
specifically.
the 406 is a frequency that's always monitored, and,
Yeah.
and they don't like us using that.
Yeah. Well, there's
we
a.
do have, by the way, one of our members has a 406 training beacon
Yes.
that we can use, Bob Miller, but we got to get a hold of him, and
Yeah,
it's got to be all set up.
Yeah,
So
there's a process.
So
Yeah.
we can do that kind of training, but if you want to do UDF training, standard UDF training,
Yeah.
I can do that.
Well, and that's I mean, the 406 is only just for me. It's an informational. What I noticed every time I do a SARX, and again, now that I've actually read the manual, now I understand a couple of things. One thing is, I think most people do not know how to use the Becker that are in a SARX. I mean, I'm sure people that go on real missions
You're supposed
do.
to train to learn how to use it
Yes.
in the SARX.
Yes.
That's part of the observer training.
Yeah, no one taught. So, and I don't think it's anybody's fault. It's just, it's among those things, right? So, one thing I noticed is, definitely learning how to set the squelch on it, because what I've always seen is they turn it on, and the first time I saw it used is as an observer who was renewing, and I don't think he had done it in quite a while. And he turned the Becker unit on, and now I realize what was happening is he didn't have the squelch adjusted properly. So what you see is the signal just bouncing constantly off of
Point
different
of
stuff.
information, some SARXs don't even have a beacon
Right.
placed.
Well, I think
So
we
they
did.
won't do that training.
At Riverside, we did. I think.
Riverside, we did.
Yeah.
We had one out there.
Yeah, we had one there. I thought
I don't know if Cable did that or not.
I thought I'd talked to him about. Well, yeah, I don't know for sure either. But definitely, it's something. Just got bored, started reading, and realizing that. And also, what was confusing is the Becker unit. There's apparently two versions of it, but they're both made by the same company. At
Yeah,
least.
there's the 517 and I think
Yeah.
the 600. So
Yeah.
model numbers.
And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So.
There's the very first ones that came out. We have 2 or 3 aircraft with that model in there, and I don't know if they upgraded it to the better one. But when the 406 came out, they only had like 2 different frequencies. They had like A frequency and B frequency, and when you got a SARX, the IC was supposed to tell you which one that you were going to use.
Right.
Now there's many more, and there's an explanation for that, but I'd have to get out the books and do that. But basically, it was a manufacturer's limitation. For the first year, they were only going to use the A's, and the second year they're going to use the B's, and the third year they were going to use the C frequency, and so forth and so on. So because there's only so many frequencies available, and they figured out that there's going to be so many airplanes out there, so they divided the airplanes by the frequencies, and they were only going to allow so many. So again, I've got to get the books out, and I've got to review all that stuff to be accurate, or more accurate. But that's pretty much the reason. Now, the aircraft that are coming out with all frequencies, so it's all 406 frequencies in there. It's not limited to 2 or 3 or 4.
Okay.
So it depends on which aircraft you're in, and I believe 743 Charlie Papa, the one we have now, is one of the older ones with a limited amount of 406 frequencies. It doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just doesn't work on all aircraft.
Right.
Because some of the newer aircrafts may have a 406C frequency or 406Z
yeah,
frequency,
yeah.
and you won't be able to pick that up unless the receiver can do that.
Interesting.
Kind of complex, but there's a lot of aircraft out there. So
Yeah.
and as we adapt into that technology, we get limitations that we have to deal with, and that's what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. So, yeah, okay, enough hot Becker talk. But elsewise at the SRX, like I said, my own personal experience was pretty straightforward. I got finished up my mission observer exercises and tasks. What's interesting is I then immediately got a mission, WADS mission on Tuesday, where we didn't do anything. We just flew up to Fresno and then flew back because we were the spare. But it gave me a lot of time in the right seat to figure out how to be a better observer, and I think I'm definitely on the road to being a better observer. Because my whole point was, since I do understand, I'm a pilot, I get it. My whole point was to try to anticipate what needed, make sure it was set up and ready to go, to the point where he was totally comfortable doing, doing a couple of instrument approaches on our way back, because I had them all set up, and then I just went into safety pilot mode and just watching traffic and taking care of everything. So, I think, for people that aren't going to be mission pilots anytime soon, learning to be an observer and being really good at it, so that, pilots are, freed up to kind of do what they do, make our missions far more successful. I'm starting to see where, I can be helpful even way before I become a transport mission pilot or a mission pilot. So that was something I kind of learned as well. And learning our different systems. So we focus on the G1000, but we do have other GPS units out there that people do not know how to use. And that was interesting. So like, I think Cap 401, for example, has a GTN 650XI. And everyone kind of went, yeah, I don't know how to use that. And I was like, I know how to use it. I was setting waypoints, and he was like, oh, okay. So again, just kind of, being aware of when you're sitting in the right seat, your job is to kind of lighten the load and run the mission. And I think, I definitely learned on that SRX to, do that part and do it well. So, but for me, good SRX. I think the ground team leader was a little frustrated because he was a one man, and he had a gaggle of cadets that are all trying to get their tasks signed off, and he's the driver, he's the comm guy, he's the ground team leader, and he's the set for ground team. So he was just overwhelmed. So and like I said, a little bit of weirdness. There was on the first day of this RX, after almost all the first sorties came in, there was a very large fire right next to the airport, and spooked everybody. So we called off all the remaining sorties. It was not a plane crash, as it turned out, but it definitely looked like a plane crash, and it was right next to the airport, so everybody was a little concerned about that. Second day was just a little bit lighter. I think they got more sorties in, but it was kind of a mixed bag. There was some, I was kind of watching the base crew and how they worked as well, because I think for me next I need to get some base staff stuff done. But yeah, other than that, SRX was good. As I mentioned, did a WADS mission on Tuesday, last Tuesday, I think, or see, the dates are all starting to get screwed up now. No, it probably wasn't last Tuesday, but the WADS mission was pretty straightforward, except for there wasn't a scenario, so that was kind of unusual. Usually we're told how to behave, and when we attended the briefing the night before, there was really no discussion of what kind of profile that we're flying. Are we going to be belligerent? Are we going to be no comms? Like, what are we going to be? There was none of that. It was apparent that these were F-15s because they were from the Northern California base, so they wanted to practice their headbutt procedures. So, and for those of you who may or may not know, the headbutt is where they try to get your attention by doing all kinds of neat stuff. Usually it's zooming around in front of you or hanging around next to you. The part that I really want to get to one of these years is part of the headbutt, especially at night. Um, they will cross, I think, slightly below you, and launch a bunch of flares. So I was like, yeah, I want to be in that mission. So because I kept getting concerned about the fact that so as part of it, we were the spare. So it was me and Captain Balderson. We were the spare crew. So we just took I can never remember set 437 the 82. Yeah, 743 743 Charlie Papa. We took it up to Fresno, and then as soon as we was down, they were like RTB at your discretion. So we didn't get to do anything, but I was reading on the way. I had the intercept procedures. So the FAA publishes. I guess this does fit in aerospace education. The FAA does publish intercept procedures.
Standard.
Yeah, that if you are intercepted, expect the interceptees to do this, and you should do this, especially if you don't have comms. And but I noticed in there, there's a lot of jet aircraft zooming in front of you, which I thought that seems dangerous. I know they're trying to get your attention, but as long as they're doing it below you, I guess it's fine. It would worry me that the wording says they will turn in front of you, and I was like, yeah, that sounds like a wake turbulence nightmare.
Actually, I thought the headbutt was they come directly towards you, and about 1,000 feet before they hit you, they pitch up, hit the afterburners, and create a bunch of turbulence
No.
for you to fly through.
No, not from what I saw.
That's what
That's what you pictured.
Standard procedure.
No, they actually. I think the first thing they'll do is they'll one of them, the engagee, they'll come up on the pilot side and go on a slow flight and try to get your attention visually. I think is the official intercept, and if they can get your attention, they'll waggle their wings and try to get you to follow them. But their partner is always behind you, locking you up. So it's always exciting. But yeah, if that doesn't work, they'll keep getting closer. And if that doesn't work, then they'll start zooming in front of you and trying to get you to alter course. And I guess eventually the last thing they'll do is launch a flares to get your attention. And they don't. None of that works. I guess you're gonna get shot down at that point. But yeah, interesting stuff.
If you don't comply, they will shoot you down.
Yeah. I think that's I heard a few. I wouldn't call them. Well, I don't know if they're intercepts, but when day 2 of the SARX, we were monitoring 1215, and we heard an awful lot of chatter on 1215. And it wasn't meowing and let's go Brandon's finally. It was actually a bunch of air guard talking to people that apparently were not where they should be. So that was kind of interesting. I think what else? One thing we start to talk about is those of you that either are online and possibly new, you really should focus on your level 1, and I can help with that, and your Jaeger exams. Those are 2 things you really should work on doing here at CAP. It is part of our aerospace education program. Unlocking level 1 kind of unlocks the rest of the things you can do in CAP, and Jaeger is just kind of a commitment to being knowledgeable about all things that are, aerospace history and, general facts about air and space when it comes to what we know currently. So I'll make sure I drop that note. I think recently, as of January, I took it. It doesn't take that long. The read is definitely longer. I think if Yixtian was here, he would be carrying us through chapters of the Jaeger program. But the Jaeger program, by the way, it's a book. It's a book on the history of aviation and space, and and it's not U.S. specific. It's what we know about aviation from time immemorial, all the way to now. And it's as part of our mission here at CAP, you should be kind of knowledgeable on what's going on in the aviation world. So not a requirement, but definitely something you should kind of do in your spare time. Just read up and make sure, as a member of CAP, you can kind of have a conversation about aviation. Let's see. Do we know who's online yet?
Yeah. Mike Hubman, Ken Tharp, Roger Mann.
Oh, yeah, everybody's already probably passed it already. All right, excellent.
I don't think.
Well, in case somebody watches the replay, there you go. I think so. Let's see. Can I think of anything else that we talk about? Questions, comments? I think the only thing I've been talking about is I've been reading a lot of Mike Bush lately. So I was like, once I heard Lon was an A&P, I was like, oh, okay, I got stuff to talk to Lon about. But yeah, I started reading the whole because I'm trying to be an aircraft owner, so I should know some things about how well, what happens to the fuel once we put it in the wing, and actually very interesting reading. This whole process of trying to buy an aircraft is definitely eye-opening and frustrating. I think the one plane I was chasing, I just found out I'm gonna have to walk away from that one. So the search continues, but I know an awful lot more about engines than I knew probably a week or two ago. So that was, I think the mistake that I think most people make is they assume that aircraft engines are very similar to automobile engines, and it's like, yeah, they diverged a long time ago. Yeah, they diverged a long time ago, and aviation engines are designed, to fail in not fail, but fail in an appropriate way where they don't crash. And automobile engines, yeah, whatever, do whatever you want. So that was interesting to me. I mean, just the whole learning aspect of what does it mean when we say, um, we're going to do a top end overhaul, or and that type of stuff, and bore scoping the cylinders, like that type of stuff. I was like, oh, okay, this is all stuff that I can actually do. Like, it's not hard. Just pull a spark plug and look in there, and the types of things you guys look for when you're looking at the valves, and anyway. Interesting read. So if any of you haven't read the Mike Bush series of books, it starts with, I think, Manifesto, and now I'm on Engines, and I think there's two books. No. There's Manifesto, Engines, and then Aircraft Ownership Part 1 and Part 2. So if you're curious, like I am, good reads. He's a cranky old guy who knows an awful lot about aircraft engines. So, I think I just kind of like that altogether because I don't know. He's giving me a look now. Bob's giving me a look. That's the reason I like Mike Bush is his whole thing is don't break out the wallet. Like that's his. You shouldn't rush to overhaul your engines. You shouldn't just take at face value what your shop says you should do to the aircraft, and having some knowledge about is this a safety of flight issue versus is this something that can run to failure. Those kind of discussions, but I like it from that standpoint. He's not saying, oh yes, everything should be overhauled at TBO. Like he's like that's in fact one of the biggest misnomers that. Yeah, exactly. But I've talked to a lot of people that are like, oh, it's engine's close to TBO, it's done, and I'm like, now I know. I'm like that's garbage. Like if the engine's making compressions and it's not throwing oil, and you're probably fine. So, anything else? Any other topics? I mean, I'm running dry up here. Everyone's giving me blank stares. So
You should always have about 10 subjects in your pocket
yeah.
you could talk about.
Yeah.
Well, we're only 5 minutes away, so we could end the meeting a little early if you want to.
All right.
But get your log. I mean, get your regulations out and start reading regulations to see exactly what they say. I learned something new today. I was thinking about a regulation we had and it got changed, and Lon and I discussed it, and now I know how the regulation reads today. So, I've been around a long time. A lot of regulations have changed and more than once. So I have to read them all the time. And today I learned that I wasn't correct. So now we can proceed, and I've got my education again. So anyway, get your regulations out and read them. Get your pamphlets out and read those out of the CAP information. And keep up on the regs and keep up on the information. It's
Yeah.
good for you.
Yeah, they do change weird stuff at weird times. They do annotate it sometimes, but a lot of them sneak up on us. Like remember we were submitting new member forms, and now they're much easier. So
That's
yeah,
right. It changed on me too. So
yeah.
So have we collected dues from our new members yet? Do you know that? You and Andre should be working on that.
I haven't yet,
Okay,
but
so
I'm
keep
not
up on that.
I'm not part of finance, so I wouldn't
You know,
know.
our rent went up. Our rent went up $56 a month, so we have to increase our dues again to make up for that. So that's coming up.
Yay!
And then you lost Group 3 that used to support us a little
Well,
bit.
yeah.
Now they're going to
go to
Over
March, so
March.
we're going to lose their
he
help
feels
that they
he doesn't
gave
want
us.
to drive all the way out here.
So we're gonna be more self-sufficient again. So
Yay!
again, so that's another reason why the dues have to go up, so we can compensate for that. So
Yeah, our SUI got extended to end of next month. So
what's that?
The SUI.
The SUI got extended
Yeah.
to the 31st. So we
Of-
as soon as
of
Andre
next
gets
month,
back, we
yeah.
all three should sit down and finish that paperwork up and get it submitted.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I mean, I uploaded all those regular forms, you
Right.
know, and I looked at what you did last year, and then tried to update the best I could. So
Right.
hopefully they should just need to be reviewed and
Yeah. The new SUI, they sent us a sample of what they want us to answer. So that's according to the new SUI. So I think that we need to read the email that they sent us saying these are the categories and these are the things that we're going to be asking questions on. That doesn't mean they can't ask more, but those are the ones that they're gonna ask us. And I understand they're being very critical nowadays. So we're gonna do the best we can.
Yep.
And we're gonna fix everything that they don't like. So.
Yep.
All right.
The other thing coming up is awards recommendations. So just be
Yeah,
aware.
awards is another thing coming up. That
Yeah.
we
We
gotta
should have these done by the end of August for submission.
Yeah. For a new commander, he's going to be kind of bewildered about that. So you guys, again, we're going to have to sit
Yeah.
down and talk about awards as well.
yes.
If when Andre gets back. So it's going to be a couple of the evenings, and we'll be done, and
Yeah.
then it'll be next year. So
Yeah, I'm on the group awards committee, so obviously we
Right.
hopefully we'll get get things. If we recommend people,
preferential
good.
treatment.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
I just sent a letter to our commander about
Yeah.
safety squadrons who are always late, and they want to be put in for the best
But
squadron.
Squadron 5 is not one of those.
Nope.
No.
And these people were going to say we're the best squadron in the world. And I said, how can you be the best squadron in the world when I have to keep every month sending you an email, and I catch heck from Wayne about not being submitted. I mean, we're adults. And
Yeah.
That's what I told Ken. I said, we're all adults. I said, I just give up. I'm giving up. If they can't act as adults, then
Well, it's kind of hard because National says they want it done on the 15th, and then Group wants it done on the 10th. So they have
no,
a few
actually,
days to
they
get
want
to the 15th.
they want to submit it by
And then the
20th.
Squadron wants it done on the 5th. So, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if
And the
those dates are right.
regulations.
Everybody
don't
wants
say
it.
that.
Everybody
Well,
wants it 5 days early so they can
Well,
review it.
and now you've got some overlap. So like for instance, I have a consolidated status report that I send to group, and it's just like it doesn't bother me because I keep track of it, and if somebody needs another piece of it, I'll just break it out. But yeah, it's hey, we're running just like the Air Force. That part I can say. So it's true.
Screwed up.
Yeah.
Okay,
Foobar.
well, we made 8 o'clock, so let's
All
join
right.
the mission here. and,
Meeting adjourned.
And say thank you very much for all you that have joined us online. And see you next week.